Hello and welcome to Startup Champions 2.0, the show where you meet and learn from National Startup Award winning founders. In the episode today, you will meet a startup champion incubator, that is Access Livelihoods Foundation, and a special mentor and a guest, that's Pranab Bhatia. What does a great idea need? Incubation. With the right incubation support, an idea has the power to change the world and impact millions of lives. This is exactly what our startup champion has done. They have impacted millions of marginalized lives across rural India, from small farmers to weavers and artisans, livestock holders and fisherfolk, forest produce gatherers to daily wagers, urban marginalized to micro and small medium entrepreneurs, and many, many other communities. They are the layer of hope and ambition and opportunities for India's marginalized. Let's see the Access Livelihoods Foundation story.
We are an incubator which incubates enterprises which are owned by rural and tribal women, and we have been doing this for the last 15 years. India is a land where it requires many more such kind of Amuls and Richard Papats which are owned by the women and which can generate employment and income for them within the villages from the places where they originate. We are trying to work with the women and help them to establish their own companies which can generate income as well as employment for them. Now, when we try and establish these companies, and if they are working on the ground, there are many companies and international organizations as well as Government of India which has openly, in fact, very strongly supported our effort. First of it is that we are a recognized incubation center as an established incubation center by Atal Innovation Mission under Niti Aayog. They have given us 7.5 crores as a capital which is we invested into producer companies like Diwan. The income which goes in the hands of the women are utilized for improving the quality of life of the family. Similar such kind of enterprises are being promoted across 5 states where we work today, and we are lucky to have big partners like Tata Power, Ramoji Foundation, Asian Paints and many other organizations which are also supporting it. Very soon we are going to also tie up with L&T Financial Services, where we'll be undertaking a large-scale project within Kerala and Karnataka also.
So Krishna Gopal and Sarath, welcome to Startup Champions 2.0. My first question to the both of you is, look, your operational model is very, very interesting. By the way, I love it personally, right? From beehives to cross-pollination symbiosis with corporates, you do so much more. You have operatives, you've got networked entrepreneurs, and fundamentally, what you're creating are enterprises, right? You're fundamentally creating not just livelihood, but you're actually creating livelihood with enterprise. Tell us more about how this entire system works.
Essentially, we are all inspired by the great models which are there already in India, and India is known for Amul. Amul represents the strength of a large number of millions of producers in the ground, and at the same time, Richard Papat. So when we see them, they are highly impactful, and they do create what the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, is talking about, Atmanirbhar Bharat. So we were inspired by this model, the model where rural producers themselves are able to take control over the economy and shape up their own incomes, and in the process not only develop their own households but also the overall local economy. So that was the key idea, and we wanted to work on that. And when we are inspired with a model like Amul, it's a great model, and it's really tough to replicate, and that's the reason why in 75 years we hardly have any other story which is as equivalent as Amul. Hopefully we will create such kind of more stories, and we've just made baby steps, and we've had some successes, and also some not so been successful, not as successful as, but in the time to come, I think with the support from the government and many other organizations, we are sure to create a substantially different kind of a model which can strengthen the lives of the communities and at the same time kindle the entrepreneurial spirit in the country.
So since you said you use the word communities, right? Let me just build upon it. So the one interesting part of your entire model is you get people together, right? Almost like creating a cooperative of sorts, which is fundamentally what you call a beehive, right? Yeah. Tell us more about it. So how does it actually work on ground?
On the ground, basically, see, we look at a compact area, and there we see that small and marginalized women are coming together. They're aggregated. The company is registered in their name, so it is called a producer company. And what happens is, the women come together, they're trained, then there is establishment of value addition units over there. And what we look for is how do we see their produce coming, aggregated and sold in the market together, processed and sold, which gives them higher income as compared to what they can do at their doorstep. That's what we are looking at from this model. So essentially it's a producer to consumer that we are looking at linking them.
And till today, how many such companies have you been able to create?
We have created about 54 companies of those kinds. And currently we are actively working with about 17 of them in 7 clusters across 4 states, and 17,000 women are a part of it.
This is absolutely phenomenal. So congratulations to the both of you on doing this.
Thank you.
Now you offer learning, you also offer finance opportunities, and you're also reimagining communities in many ways, right? How does this entire thing work? Because there's learning, there's finance. Look, running a company is not easy. And running a company at a cluster level with marginalized women, running that company, being shareholders of that company, creating a produce and then taking that produce to the customers is not easy, right?
Yes.
How do you actually operationalize all of it across 17 companies?
So there's a lot of preparatory work that has to be done, especially when you work with the women. The incubation structure as such and the services that we give to the enterprises which are coming up is no different, whether you are in urban India or in the rural areas. But for these women, the support has to be much more sensitive and has to be much more collaborative in a partnership way for a longer duration. So usually when we enter into incubation programs or an acceleration program with the women, we provide a time scale of anything between 3 to 8 years, and that actually gives them the enough impetus or momentum so that they don't fail. World over, there is a research that has been done, and 95% of enterprises fail within the first 5 years of their establishment.
Sure.
And that's where what we call the infant stage of the enterprise, where we need to give a very sensitive support. And for the women, it comes in multiple ways. And the idea of going through a learning program, in fact, we are now creating a learning management solution, which is completely can be operated by women who are 7th standard. Just qualified by 7th standard. So it's a lot of voice over content being made enabled. Similarly, financial inclusion solutions which can help the women to be completely involved in the enterprise activities, and they get access to finance which is required as the critical lesson. So all the inputs packaged together has to be delivered in a much more sensitive way, because we are talking about tribal and rural women. That's the only difference.
Let's not talk about the impact, right? Because look, your work really goes deep and moves a lot of people and their lives as well. Can you share certain numbers in terms of sheer impact that has gotten created till date?
Well, we worked with around 65,000 women. We have an aspiration to go up to 1 million women, and that we hope to achieve in the next decade. If you look at purely in terms of impact, the weaving intervention has been the most successful one, and with around 900 women across 3 companies, they have been able to triple the income. The national average of income for the weavers usually is around 50,000 to 60,000 rupees per annum.
Okay.
But today in the enterprises that we have promoted, the weaver is earning anything around 2 to 2.5 lakhs per annum. That's almost 3 times to 4 times this kind of thing. Similarly, our dairy intervention also has been very successful. We have seen doubling and tripling of income, which is also the national objective which is set by the Honorable Prime Minister. So through this model, by building efficiency and effectiveness, and these companies are able to compete with some of the best companies. They are much more cost competitive, and at the same time they are able to offer better solutions to the consumers.
I get that. Now, what's your business model? How do you make money?
Yes, we charge a fee to all the services, and so we are not looking at a subsidized kind of a model. We basically are saying that we provide professional services to the enterprises, and these enterprises pay a reasonable fee, which is benchmarked with what government expects us to offer at the service.
Fantastic.
So there are certain, when you work with these communities, there are certain values which govern us. So, and we are a not-for-profit foundation.
Sure.
So therefore, when we are a not-for-profit foundation, we have put an internal limits.
I get that.
Whether it is on the remuneration of our own staff or whether it is on the service fee that we levy.
Sure.
It's not kind of a competitive or an exploitative pricing, but it basically is an enabling pricing which can generate enough surplus for others.
Sure. So millions of Indians are watching you right now, on this very show, Startup Champions 2.0, and of course they want to be inspirational like you. They want to create impact like you. What's your message for all of them?
One of the things is we say that rural poor are bankable. They can be ones with whom we can work. That's first thing. And the second thing is believe in yourself and stay long. You have to work long enough for creating any change in the communities. And there's no satisfaction greater than, seeing the people with whom you're working getting the benefits of what you have done.
Gentlemen, thank you so very much for your answers. The top 2 lessons from this session for you are: number 1, you can create a strong network of supply and demand when you serve Bharat. And number 2, when you connect Bharat with learning and finance, you open a whole new world of opportunities for them and a new possibility for business for yourself. It's now time to take the audience question. Let's just see what the question is for our startup champions today.
My name is Roshan Sharma. I am from Delhi. My question is how you have a massive impact. How do you fund your operations?
So, a variety of things. Again, there is a lot of innovation that is happening. In fact, Government of India is also at the forefront of all this. The social enterprise sector, where the not-for-profits are translating themselves into incubators and enterprise promoters, there is a scope for what we call as social stock exchange, which are evolving. The Honorable Finance Minister had announced a few years back that India is now going to be one of the very few countries where social stock exchanges will be there. Now, a typical social stock exchange will be valuing both impact as well as financial return. Normally in stock exchanges, you only look for financial return.
Sure.
But in a social stock exchange, you will value both impact as well as social returns, the financial returns. So, so the avenues for generating funds are changing. So there is a scope to look at philanthropic funds, grants, combine it with low-cost debts, and at the same time access equity resources, where equity comes with a consciousness that you really want to contribute something to the world. So this is an emerging area, and we are at the forefront of it. In fact, we've been able to mobilize around 70 crores of this kind of blended finance money, which is a very unique kind of a thing. It's not that many incubators are able to do, and that's also because the ecosystem is still evolving.
Sure.
And as it evolves, we will be able to see that this entire sector will grow much faster.
I personally think that's a brilliant answer, because you've actually broken down all the levels and the ways and the methodologies of financing, especially for social impact startups and startup champions like yourself. It's now time for a break, but don't go anywhere. Next, you will meet a special guest and a mentor. I will see you on the other side. Welcome back to Startup Champions 2.0. It's now time to meet our guest and mentor, Pranav Bhatia. Pranav is the founder and CEO of Stirring Minds. He is also a serial entrepreneur. Let's get started with our Q&A with Pranav. So Pranav, welcome to Startup Champions 2.0.
Thanks.
My first question to you is, look, for all of our audience, just demystify this and break this entire thought down. What exactly is the difference between an incubator and an accelerator?
See, the difference is that an accelerator runs for a very short time and then creates and helps you and puts you out there in the market, and then it's a situation where you are on your own. Whereas incubator takes complete responsibility for your success for an extended time period.
Okay.
Right? And it's a more hands-on involvement. So it's more like an accelerator is more like an MBA program where you do your MBA and then you're on your own. Whereas an incubator kind of keeps working with you for an extended period of time and is very well deep involved with you over a period of time. So that's the basic difference.
Okay. And when you say, let's say a certain period of time, so an incubator would be how long generally?
So there are people who are kind of incubators have at least a 3 to 5 year kind of a range wherein they are kind of working with a startup. Right?
Very interesting. The second question is, look, at an incubation stage, a lot of startups want to actually ask this question. How much equity, if any, should they dilute in case if they're getting any investment? Because a lot of incubators might actually say that, look, I am incubating you, so I would want to take some equity in you, right? So how much should they actually be diluting at that early stage?
See, it depends upon how much money they are getting, what's the kind of network that they are getting and everything else that is available to them as an exchange. But generally, it's around maybe a 7% kind of equity or 3 to 7% is something that's kind of an industry average that people can dilute in the beginning for an incubator. There are people who kind of working with even lesser equity, and there are people who are working with more equity also, but anywhere between 3 to 7% is probably the norm.
Okay. And do incubators also invest money in startups, or do they only give resources? I mean, what is this equity being taken for?
So both kind of incubators are there, but most of the incubators invest money.
Got it. So there is actual cash being invested in a certain company. Fantastic.
Yes.
In your co-working incubation system, of course, do you actually help startup founders also get their co-founders or meet their co-founders?
Yes. So there are different ways a startup can meet their co-founder. We invite a lot of fellow aspirants and aspiring entrepreneurs to meet our cohort members, so that they can kind of do a founder dating. And at times we help them meet other people who have worked with us in the past, and hence we facilitate the entire process of finding co-founders.
And how does this work? Do you actually host events where startup founders can come and attend those events? How does this really work, or does
Yes.
this work online?
Yes, both. We do events called startup meetups, where anybody who's interested in a startup would come. People who are working with us in the cohort would then pitch their startup and invite people to become their co-founders if there are people who are interested. And at the same time, we do these meetups online also. So these are again startup online meetups.
Interesting. Now, let's actually talk about certain impact numbers. You've been actually in the space for quite some time now,
Sure.
right? What sort of an impact have you or your ecosystem been able to create for the startups that you've incubated?
So very difficult to kind of put numbers, because we have worked with so many different startups over the last 8 years that we have been working with startups. We started more like a co-working space, then got into a seed accelerator program, and then started incubating some startups also. So there have been startups who have raised multiple Series C, Series D rounds, have raised hundreds of millions of dollars of amounts, and there have been startups who are at an early stage. So everybody is at a different stage in their journey. We have had 14 different cohorts till date, and in every cohort we have had around 50 to 70 startups that we have worked with. And these startups before COVID were mostly people who were working with us at a physical level. Post COVID, we have also started working with startups in different parts of the world. We have got some startups from Australia, Stockholm, Ireland, and other parts of the world, and they are kind of in our cohort, and we are doing a lot of engagement with different participants online, right? So these are the kind of things that we have been doing.
Interesting. And one very, very important part for any startup at a very early stage is how much money do they actually spend on all of the support that they're fundamentally getting, right? Because of course there is so much in the incubation and the acceleration space that a lot of people say, okay, we will give you X. Somebody says, I will give you X plus 5, right? But startups of course have to shell out some money for that. Now, tell me something. You have been running an incubation system for quite a while. Generally, do startups actually pay a lot of money at this point of time, and should they be doing that, or should they be conserving their cash flows and say that, okay, whenever I want to attend an event, I will just go and do that?
So actually a startup should always be frugal in its approach. So that's the first thing. In fact, there are a lot of government bodies as well as private institutions and companies that support startups across the world, from an Amazon startup ecosystem and their Activate program, to a Microsoft for startups, to a Google for startups. And a lot of these people provide credits in terms of servers, in terms of their CRM softwares and other software companies like Zoho, Freshdesk. All of them have programs for startups. So a lot of these things are available for free. So they don't necessarily need to spend a lot of money on acquiring stuff. They need to know where the stuff is available for free. At the same time, they should be in touch with mentors and accelerators that are ready to give them a lot of knowledge without taking a lot of money up front. Because initially it's important to save money when you have not raised a lot of money. So that's what the approach should be.
Absolutely. You used a very important word called mentors, right? Now, since mentoring is something that is very, very hands-on, you can't just be a mentor online and just say that, I would mentor you, let's say, once every 3 months.
Sure.
What should startups actually look for in terms of KPI to achieve from mentors? So let's say if I'm a startup, I'm taking mentorship, what should I actually look for to achieve from my mentor?
Sure. So first of all, it's very important to understand that you should always go to a mentor that has some idea of your industry that you are in. Because if the mentor doesn't have an idea of the industry that you are in, then probably he'll not be able to guide you as well. And at the same time, it's important to go to mentors who have been successful in terms of running their startups out there in the market. There's a difference between a lifestyle business and a startup. So if you go to someone like a Kunal Shah, you understand that he's done a lot of startups in the past, and he understands the startup ecosystem in the market. But then if you go to probably a real estate developer who's got a lot of money probably in his pocket and he's ready to mentor you, but he may not traditionally know exactly how a startup functions, and he would not have worked with the new age startup culture as such. So it's important to go to the right mentor. At the same time, when you're talking about KPIs, it's important that the mentor introduces you to a lot of your possible other mentors, your key customers, your suppliers, your vendors. The mentor can obviously create a lot of doors and opportunities for you. So suppose if you are in an industry where you're creating a SaaS product, and if you go to a founder of Infosys and ask him to mentor you, then probably he'll be able to connect you to a global network of companies that they have worked with in the past, and that would open up a lot of opportunities for you. So it's important, in fact, when raising funds also, you should raise funds from people who will be able to help you with their network. That is a lot more important than the money that's coming onto the table, right? So that's what I would say.
Sure. My last question to you, Pranav, is, look, millions of Indians are actually watching you on the very show that you are on right now, Startup Champions 2.0. They want to be successful, they want to be entrepreneurs, they want to solve big problems. What's your message for all of them?
See, I would say that it's very important to understand when you say that they want to solve big problems. The idea is that it's very important to understand what's the kind of problem that you're solving. Are you the best person to solve that problem? Would you be able to do that in the fastest possible manner? And whether that problem is big enough, like you may create a drug that is kind of curing somebody from a terminal disease, but what if only 2 people in the world have that problem, right? You may not be able to create a business out of it, right? So it's very important to understand what kind of a market you are addressing, and then go into that market after doing good amount of research, and then keep taking feedback from the market and keep pivoting and keep improving your product. It's called the lean startup approach. You learn, measure and build kind of an approach wherein you just keep improving the product, right? So that's the approach that they should be taking.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much for your answers, Pranav. The top 2 lessons of this session are: number 1, do not dilute more than a very basic equity while you are in the incubation stage. You might actually lose on the other side. Number 2, use the money during incubation to reach your product market fit. It is extremely important that you ensure that while you are being incubated and when you are getting ready for acceleration, you achieve that product market fit that we have already spoken about in our How to Start a Startup section. Do things that don't scale. It's okay. It's time for a break. After the break, we will take the step number 22 of how to start a startup. I will see you on the other side very soon. Welcome back to Startup Champions 2.0. Learning leads to earning. You all know this now. Let's continue our journey of learning and earning with step number 22 of how to start a startup. It's time to scale. Listen to me very carefully. It's time to scale. Number 1, till now you have learned about 3 critical pillars of your startup. These are distribution, KPI of your team, of course, and third is your business model. By now, you must have seen some things fail in your startup. You must have hired 1 or 2 wrong people. Your product pricing would have actually gone wrong. The customers would have given you maybe not so great feedback. So you've gone through the grind again and again. And now you would have gone to the drawing table multiple times over and again. You have done things that won't scale. You are now confident of a very clear business model. You have your first few paying customers, a cohort, and you have also achieved PMF, that is product market fit. It's now time to scale your business because now you're ready. Use distribution, KPI, and business model to scale. What that means is you have to optimize for these 3 factors. By optimization, I mean you optimize for the cost and the cash across these 3 pillars. How much are you spending to grow? Cash flow and profitability both. Remember this, you have to grow cash flow and profitability both. And how much money are you spending to do this is critical for your next level of growth. This is when you might also decide to go in new markets. Look, when we talk about scale, we also talk about taking your startup or your company to newer markets. You might be in India right now, you might want to go to Singapore or to Dubai or maybe to open other markets as well. You might also want to open new offices globally. Now, you might not really have all the money, all the cash in the bank to do all of this. So you will have to look at raising investment to fuel your growth. The good part is, right now at this point, this is not just Excel sheet growth that you have anymore. This is real growth with real impact and real results. You are ready to scale and grow. Remind yourself of step number 22. It's now time to scale. What did you learn from today's episode? Share your feedback with us. Make your videos and post them on social media with #StartupChampions2. In the next episode, you will meet startup champions from the travel industry. Thank you for watching Startup Champions 2.0. Jai Hind.
So we develop destinations which are close to your place, not very difficult to reach, and there you get local food, fresh air, lot of oxygen there. So all these things will get at Villotel.
Working with clusters, so we have homestay owners, we have local people who are like guides, farmers and all, to create an enrich experience for the guests.
You had 45,000, more than 45,000 waitlisted tickets on trains by our soldiers, right? At the same time, you had empty seats by airlines. Now, if we could solve both the problems put together.
Because why travel? Because it connects everybody.
आप देख रहे हैं डीडी कशिर एहसास